You're listening to the Escapecast Network.
It's For Mac Guys Only, episode number 472 for May 10th, 2026, a Foxy Tunnel to Privacy. Hey everyone, welcome back to For Mac Guys Only, the show for the Mac community, where we share our thoughts and opinions on current Mac news and events. And joining me to discuss tunneling through the darkness that is the internet is Darren Davies. Howdy, Darren. How are you doing?
Hello there.
And remember, we do normally record For Mac Guys Only live on YouTube the second and fourth Sunday of the month. And if you would like to come hang out, ask questions, and be part of our live studio audience, be sure to subscribe to the show at youtube.com/FMEOTV. Well, Darren, last episode we mentioned the new free browser-based VPN service that Mozilla rolled out with the release of Firefox 149. And naturally, with the release of a new major feature like that, like a built-in VPN, the update from Mozilla generated a question or two. And a longtime listener and contributor to the show, Lisa, wrote in to ask, I see in my recent Firefox updates the announcement that they have a VPN I can use. So my question is, as a Firefox fan like myself, mostly using it on the Mac, have you guys used this? Does it break anything? How does it really work in practice if you used it? And most importantly, why use it? Oh, and that's what I want to talk about today. Why use it? I always thought a person had to buy a VPN, and then it wouldn't always work with an ISP or a service provider. Oh, actually, that's a really good point. It does seem as if we have to buy VPNs, doesn't it? Everybody's advertising them. There's one VPN company in particular, VPN service. Let's call it a VPN service. There's one VPN service in particular that is very YouTube heavy when it comes to product placement in and on various channels on YouTube. So it does seem and feel like you have to buy a VPN, but this particular one is a little different. So I would like to tackle Lisa's question specifically from the viewpoint of the Mozilla products, because, well, that's what you asked about. But while doing so, also note that most of the info that we're going to be talking about here today applies just as well to several other browsers and services too, some of which we'll mention as we move along here. Now, I did want to point out, and this is important because there's a couple points that I realized it may seem like we're doing so because we're specifically talking about Mozilla's products, but as with all products that we talk about here on the show, none of the links that we provide in the show notes or in the YouTube notes down below, if you're watching this video, none of the links are affiliate links.
Yes, none are sponsored.
They're not sponsored. We're not recommending.
We're not getting a big check from Mozilla, unfortunately. Not that would change our views, of course.
Right, exactly. We're not getting a big check from Mozilla for sure. In other words, we're not recommending or discussing anything because we are getting paid to do so. And I think that's super important. As I mentioned, there's another VPN service out there that is very heavily advertised on, YouTube channels and things like that. And those are affiliate programs. If you click through to subscribe to those services, there's a little kickback to that channel. And there's nothing wrong with that. But many, many years ago, I decided I wasn't going to do affiliate links anymore on the show. I did for a short period of time, but I don't do them anymore. So anything that we talk about is either stuff that we personally use and endorse because we use it, or just a product that we like.
Well, it does guarantee that there's no bias, so I think that's a good position to be in.
Well, there might be bias. Just opinionated bias.
Yeah, slightly different kind of bias.
Opinionated versus paid bias. But I did want to get that out of the way up front. because of Lisa's question, we're going to be talking very heavily about Mozilla's VPN products. So
Yeah.
that's how I wanted to mention that. Okay, with that out of the way, I guess first, what are we talking about here? In essence, Mozilla now offers two different VPN services. There's the paid one that they've offered for quite a while now called Mozilla VPN. And there's now, as of version 149 of Mozilla Firefox, a free one that is called, as best as I can tell, simply built-in VPN. I don't think they actually have a product name for it. As far as I can tell, it's just called built-in VPN. But I'm going to refer to it in this episode as free VPN. The Firefox Free VPN. I think that's just a nice, easy way to refer to it. Now, the paid option is actually called Mozilla VPN. Now, you notice it's not called Firefox VPN. It's called Mozilla VPN. And there's a very specific reason for that. And it's because it's a Mac-wide VPN. So it would cover...
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. Mozilla VPN is Mac-wide. So it covers your browsing as well as any other internet access that you perform from your Mac. So if you're watching Apple TV, if you're checking email, if you're listening to streaming music or Zoom calls or downloading apps via the App Store, any internet-facing activity runs through Mozilla VPN.
I thought this particular one just covered the browser and the browser sessions that you launched from. Normally there's a distinction between system-level VPNs running that tunnel you for everything, and browser-based VPNs that usually only cover the browser sessions that you connect to.
Well, the paid VPN, the Mozilla VPN paid service, that's the system-wide one.
Oh, right.
The free option, which is what Lisa discovered and what was advertised to her, if you will. It's not really an advertisement. It's hey, this is available to you. Do you want to turn it on? That's the free option. And that's the one we talked about last episode. And the free VPN covers any browsing that you do.
Oh, so it is what I thought. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, the free one is what you thought, and the paid one is system-wide.
It's system-wide, right,
Yeah.
got it.
So clearly a little confusion here. So that's why I wanted to kind of get that out of the way up front. We have two different services we're talking about. Mozilla VPN, which is paid and system-wide, and then this free VPN, which is built into the browser, which only covers your browsing sessions. So any web pages that you might visit using Firefox, when this is turned on, will run through the free VPN. And the free VPN offers up to 50 gigabytes of data per month. And that should cover you for most activities, I would think. But if you end up, as I mentioned to Lisa, if you end up streaming video through Firefox while the VPN is enabled, well, you might eat up that 50 gigabytes pretty quickly. Yeah. But in general, for casual browsing or protection while you're out and about, say at a coffee shop or the library or what have you, the free VPN is a pretty great option and probably all that you would ever need.
Cool.
So how do you use it? The free VPN, so talking about the free VPN, the new service that Mozilla just rolled out within the Firefox browser, in order to use it, one, as I mentioned last episode, it's being rolled out progressively. So not everybody has been offered it so far.
Yeah.
If you happen to be one of the folks that they offer it to, great. If you haven't been offered it yet, go back and listen to the last episode for the tip on how to enable it. But if or when you want to enable the VPN, well, first you accept it. You accept that you want to enable this service within Firefox. And once you do, they put a VPN button in your toolbar. So to enable the service so that your browsing sessions are routed through the free VPN service.
Automatically?
It's not automatic. You do have to turn it on.
No, I mean, once you've turned it on, the routing is automatic.
Once you turn it on, yes. The path that your data takes is automatically determined for you, and that's something I wanted to mention.
Perfect.
But you click that button in the toolbar, and here's the important thing. Once you click that button, all the tabs, every tab that you have open is going to be routed through the VPN.
Yeah.
It's not on a per tab basis. It's all the tabs that you have open will now be routed through the Mozilla Free VPN service. Now, you can opt to disable the VPN on a per tab basis, and that's pretty easy to do. Basically, you just click on the tab and click the VPN button and say, "Don't allow this website to go through the VPN." There's a little toggle to turn it off on that particular tab. Or you can go into Firefox's settings and you can exclude particular sites permanently. And that's done through Firefox's settings and privacy and security. And then under the VPN section, manage website settings. And there you can enter the URL of a site that you would like to exclude permanently. Now, I don't know if you've ever run into problems with VPNs in particular websites, but one in particular I run into problems with all the time is Google. Because Google websites, once you're signed into them, they don't like to be accessed via a VPN. They kind of freak out a little bit because suddenly you're no longer accessing that site from a known location, but some alternate location that you've never used before. So they sometimes verify that you're a human. Sometimes they make you sign in again. Sometimes they make you do your two-factor authentication again. But Google tends to freak out a little bit if you suddenly start routing your data through them or for them through a VPN.
Fair enough. Yeah, I've seen that actually. Yeah. Especially when they challenge you to say, "Are you sure you're human? Which one of these pictures is a bicycle?"
I know, it's so annoying, and it can happen just by switching to a private browsing tab too.
That's it. Just changing it from one day to the next. That's right. Right. Your access looks different to them, so they challenge you.
Yeah.
Which is fair enough in a way. Yeah. Some
and it's good.
Don't like it.
It's good, like you said, but they freak out a little bit. And if you prefer not to deal with that freak out, you can just add any Google.com. You could just add Google.com generically.
That's right. Yeah, and just let the whole domain go through.
Yeah, you could just add Google.com to the exceptions, the exclusions, if you will, in the free service, and you won't have to deal with that, which is pretty cool. And then while in that settings screen, the one where you went to exclude a site, while you're in there, you can, or by clicking the VPN button in the toolbar, by the way, you can also check on your data usage for the month. You have 50 gigabytes of data per month. If you use up that allocation of data, you have to wait for the next month for it to reset. So that's how that works. Now, unlike a full VPN service that covers all of your internet activity, like Mozilla VPN, the paid service, with the free option, and this was your question or your point earlier, Darren, with the free option, you don't have the ability to specify if you would like to route your traffic through the UK or through Germany or through South Africa.
You get a random country, probably.
Yeah. Most likely, and I've actually determined that this is really what happens, you're routed through a secure proxy that's located close to you. And that's just for performance reasons. Rather than automatically route you, or route me, let's say, sitting here in northern Illinois in the United States, rather than route me through Germany, it automatically routes me through Chicago.
Right.
The way I tested that is I went to one of those what's my IP address websites, checked my IP. I said, okay, yep, that's my known IP. That's the one my ISP assigns me. Turned on the VPN in the browser toolbar of Firefox, rechecked the IP, and it changed from my provider and an IP block, given to me by my provider. It changed from that to an IP block provided by Mozilla, the Mozilla Corporation. And indeed, every time I turned it off and turned it back on, that IP address refreshed. So it didn't assign me the same IP every time. It assigned me a new, fresh IP every time I turned off and back on the VPN service. So it worked exactly as I expected it to. But it did route me through Chicago, because that was the server closest to me based on my location. And that's for, like I said, performance reasons. Rather than routing me through, say, New York or Los Angeles, it said, hey, he's pretty close to Chicago. Let's route him through there.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point to make, because when I use a VPN service as well occasionally, and that one is slightly different. It will randomly choose any location in the world. So when you tap on connect, it tells you where it's going. But then when you disconnect and then connect again, you'll see another random location somewhere else in the world. Could be Singapore, could be Uruguay, could be anything.
Wow. So rather than pick an optimized location, the service that you use picks just some random location around the world.
Yeah, because exactly, they have worldwide servers, so they randomly pick one. But that's only because the one that I use is a free version. So the free one is random picking. The paid version of that one, if I did pay for it, I could then choose locations to, and hierarchies of locations as well, like preferential things. So in this case, because I'm a bit of a miser and I don't pay anything at all, but the free VPN that I use just chooses a random location. Normally it's okay, because in South Korea their internet speed is incredible, and their routing speeds are incredible.
Yeah.
So I don't even notice. But then sometimes I might get routed through a country where it can affect speed, in which case you can just quickly disconnect and reconnect again for a different location. So yeah, it's just a good distinction to know where your traffic is being routed through.
Well, that does bring us to an important question, and it's a question that Lisa asked, and I'm going to ask it of you, Darren, because you just said you do use one from time to time, and I do use one from time to time. I don't use a system-wide VPN at all. I have considered the Mozilla VPN, and we'll talk about that more in a little bit, but once in a while I will enable a browser-based VPN. But the question is, why would you want to use a browser-based VPN? Why do you use it?
Oh, right. Excellent. I should probably only mention the legal things. Not that I do anything illegal, of course. That's not at all something I need to talk about.
Nothing to see here. Move along. Move along.
Move along. No. The main reason, of course, is privacy, and especially if you're doing anything to do with banking or anything like that, say purchasing something, purchases, and you're in a public area. So when you're on someone else's public Wi-Fi, that's when it's extremely useful to have VPN access, because of trust. I was going to mention it a little bit later on in the little tip I have, but trust comes up there as well. So you have to know that the VPN you are using is trustworthy, because your traffic goes through them. So you don't want to choose any random free VPN of an unknown origin, and you need to choose good quality. If you're going to choose a free VPN, you need to choose a very well-known, good quality free VPN, not any old free VPN. So yeah, I would use it. Say, for instance, if I was in a coffee shop or my one lovely gastropub over the road, I can pop in there with my iPad and do some banking, turn on a VPN, and then anyone else on that network can't sniff any traffic to see what's going on if I'm purchasing something, or if I choose to do a little bit of banking even. So yeah, it's good to know that you're secure on a VPN when you're doing tasks like that on a public Wi-Fi network.
And that's a super important distinction that you just made there, on a public Wi-Fi network. So you mentioned using a trusted, well-known free if you're going to use a free VPN service, and you want to use a trusted, well-known service. And I think for the point of our discussion, this free VPN that's built into the browser from the Mozilla Corporation would fall into that
Yes,
category.
they would indeed, because they are a trusted, a well-known trusted, Mozilla themselves are a well-known trusted organization that have been going for a very long time, so that they can be trusted with their offerings for privacy.
And yeah, exactly. We know they're privacy focused as a corporation.
Yes,
That's super important to them.
indeed.
It's always been part of Firefox. And so to use their free VPN service built into the browser, you're in pretty good shape assuming that, and we know what they say about assuming, you're in pretty good shape assuming that the free VPN browser-based service from Mozilla is safe and trusted.
Yes.
And then the other thing you mentioned is public Wi-Fi. If you're going to be on any kind of public Wi-Fi, it's kind of good to be on a trusted one, but that doesn't happen very frequently. If you're on a trusted Wi-Fi network, it's going to be password protected at the very least.
Yeah.
Now, the only comment I have about that is, in general, your traffic between your device and your bank, or your device and the shopping site that you are visiting, should be encrypted already.
Yeah.
That's pretty much a thing these days, right? It's been a thing for quite some time. HTTPS, encrypted connections between your device and the server, should provide a pretty good layer of security.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that is true. Yeah.
Even on an open Wi-Fi network, it should be a pretty good layer of security, but adding yet another wrapper around it, essentially a tunnel within a tunnel. You've got the encrypted communication between you and that site, but then if you then take that encrypted communication and stick it in another tunnel, another encrypted tunnel, that's never a bad thing.
That's right. Yeah. So that's the occasion where I would normally use a VPN service, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And places like being on a guest Wi-Fi network in a hotel, for instance, where there's lots of other guests. So that's another good thing to do.
I was on a guest network in a hotel in Texas, no names. I was attending a conference down there in Plano, Texas. I connected to the guest network, and once I connected to the guest network, now this was a little while ago, this was in 2010, but once I connected to the guest network, I instantly started seeing all the other Macs connected to the guest network.
Funny that, yes.
And when I fired up iTunes, yes, this was in the days of iTunes, when I fired up iTunes, I could see all the other shared libraries.
Shared libraries.
And you can bet that the very first thing I did was turn on the firewall and close all access, any kind of access at all to my Mac. Because once I saw that, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's no isolation. There's no isolation on this guest network.
Often that's the case of a guest network on a hotel, exactly, yeah.
Yeah. But these days, in truth, these days with a newer installation.
Should be better, yeah. Depending on how the network is set up, yeah.
Yeah, guest networks should always be isolated. In other words, every individual guest connected to the network should not be able to see any other guest connected to the network. That's how they should be set up. Yeah. Are they set up that way? Well, your good is as guess as mine. So, yes, when you're on an untrusted public network, hotels, coffee shops, libraries, you might trust the library, but do you trust everyone else on their network? When you're on any kind of open Wi-Fi network that is not itself secured with, or I shouldn't say open Wi-Fi network, when you're on any open Wi-Fi network and you're not on a secured Wi-Fi network where a password is required, if you're on a guest network where a password is required, there is yet another little layer of encryption there. But if you're on an open network where no password is required to connect to it, any kind of VPN, browser-based or system-wide, is a super, super good idea. But public network, I think, is the key, because one of the things I replied to Lisa, and I know that we are likely to disagree on a couple points in my reply to Lisa, maybe, but one of the points I raised to Lisa is that I'm in particular, not too worried about routing my traffic through a VPN from my home or my office or other known locations, because as we just talked about, the traffic between my browser and websites is encrypted already. So
Yeah.
really only the site that I'm visiting can see my IP address. Now, that by itself freaks some people out. That the website you're visiting might potentially see the IP address assigned to your home network by your ISP freaks people out. If that does, then you want to use a VPN, because that, or a proxy of some sort, that will obfuscate your IP address. In other words, make you appear as if you're coming from a different IP, so that the destination website can't see the IP assigned to your home network. And that's key. It's not the IP assigned to your computer. It's the IP assigned to your home network. In other words, the IP address that your internet service provider assigns to your router, the public-facing IP address, before it gets to your internal private network where all your devices have a different local IP. So it's the IP assigned to your home network.
That's right. Yeah. And usually it's not too much of a problem. As you say, your own devices on your own home network are separated
Right.
from that initial connection to your ISP provided connection. So you've got a wall there effectively. You've already got a wall provided by your router at that point. So
Yeah.
it's less of an issue. But there are instances where even though you have a secure connection to the website that you're talking to, normally without a VPN, if you are on a public network, then anyone scanning that network can see, for instance, if you do go to your bank, the transactions you do once you're connected to it will be okay, usually. But that person will be able to see who you bank with, because they'll be able to see the connection that you make to the bank initially. So it is encrypted from that point onwards, but the initial connection to it is visible. So it all depends how private you want to be, and I think especially on a public network, that's where this all comes into play. And you think, oh yes, I do want to have as much privacy as I can have.
Yeah. And I'm with you 100% on that. Now, from a private network, in other words, from your home or from your office or another trusted location,
I don't. Yeah, it's
there,
different.
there's still a benefit to using a VPN, and that benefit might come in the form of preventing advertisers from seeing your IP address, because the IP address could potentially be a marker that they use to, quote, track you across the internet.
Fingerprint you.
They know that traffic from this particular IP address was presented this particular ad. Now that very same advertiser on a different website could see your IP address visiting that different website and say, aha, this person is interested in this type of thing, and they're interested in this type of thing. In other words, the two different websites you went to. Let's show them these kind of ads. Now, again, I'm not particularly worried about that. In fact, I mean, if I'm being honest, I would rather be shown ads that are relevant to me than ads that are not relevant to me, right? So
Fair enough.
I'm not particularly worried about that type of tracking. I do know it happens, and I do turn off third-party tracking cookies. They're typically off by default in browsers, and cookies are a whole nother conversation, but third-party tracking cookies, in other words, the cookies that an advertiser sets when you visit a particular website, can be used across multiple websites.
Oh, that's what they're for, yes.
That's what they're for, because
cross-site tracking, yes. They want to track which site you've been from and to. Yes, exactly.
Right,
Sorry.
because it's the advertiser that set the cookie, so they can read it. When you go to multiple different websites, that very same advertiser can read that cookie. That's a third-party tracking cookie.
Yeah.
I turn those off. So almost all browsers, Firefox, Safari, Chrome, I honestly don't know if Chrome has that option. I'm sure they do. I'm sure it's not on by default.
Yes, but they do let their own advertising through. But
They do. They want their own. But anyway, Firefox and Safari in particular, it's on by default. It's just part of keeping you secure on the internet is to disable third-party tracking cookies. So that I do, and that I agree with. I'm not so worried about IP address tracking, but it's the same thing. And using a VPN can help circumvent that. But as you rightly pointed out, if you're in a coffee shop, a library, or other public Wi-Fi, and you want to check your email or log into some other site via your browser, you might want to enable that VPN for an extra layer of protection, even if that traffic is otherwise encrypted. And that's something I use a VPN for.
Yeah, same here.
Oh, and then another instance, and you probably do this too, Darren, another instance where a VPN comes in handy is if I want to visit any one site anonymously. Now, not for nefarious purposes, mind you, but a very good example, and this is what I think you might do too, if I'm supporting a client and I want to sign in to one of their accounts on their behalf without saving that information to my Mac, VPN might be good for that, as is private browsing. So
yeah, I was going to say I usually use a variant of a private browsing mode for that, so it makes sure it doesn't save any. I don't want it to automatically prompt to save someone else's password into my password chain, for instance.
Exactly. A combination of the two, private browsing and a browser-based VPN, would be a really good way to help assure that your client data is not kept or otherwise preserved on your Mac.
That's right.
So, what other reasons might Lisa or anyone else listening want to use a VPN? I think that pretty much covers why one might want to use a free VPN like what Firefox is offering. But is there any other reason that we might want to use one?
Well, there's the old video streaming. So, for instance, if you have an account in one country and you go on holiday, you might want to still be able to stream as if you are in the country that you have signed up for your streaming account with. Although there is a slight problem out there. It's not technically illegal as such, but there is a potential terms of service type thing going on there, which you may be slightly breaking. But most of the video streamers turn a blind eye to this. So currently, anyway, at least. So yeah. Just to mention, if you do fancy doing some video streaming whilst you're on holiday from a streamer that you legitimately pay for, but you're not in the country that you would normally access it from.
Well, that's very interesting you bring that up, Darren, because I actually have a note on that from something that happened to me that annoyed the heck out of me when it happened. But we'll get to that in a minute because that ties in very nicely to some of the notes I made about the Firefox Free VPN. And one of the notes is, as I already mentioned, this is an all or nothing thing. When you turn on the VPN, it applies to all tabs, it applies to new windows, and it applies to private windows. So whether you fire up a new tab, a new window, a private window, once you turn on the VPN, it's on and it applies to all of them unless you specifically exclude a tab or exclude a website through those settings. Now, I do personally feel it should be the opposite. In other words, once I turn it on, I should be able to turn it on a per tab basis versus needing to turn it off on a per tab basis. In other words,
I see what you mean.
I would like it to be opt-in per tab versus opt-out per tab. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
I understand why they do it, because they want to keep it simple. Turn it on, boom, you're protected.
Yeah. People
Turn
might
it
get
off,
confused.
boom, you're not protected, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe a toggle to always enable it globally versus... So in other words, if you turn it on, it's per tab, but if you switch this little toggle in the settings, or maybe switch off the toggle in the settings, to change it from either global or per tab, that kind of option would be really nice to me, because I have far too many tabs open at any given time.
Well, I was going to say, it depends on how many tabs you have open,
Right.
Mike.
I know. And I have way too many tabs open. I don't even want to count how many tabs I've opened. And some of those sites, as I said earlier, won't like being routed through a VPN. And, well, most will be okay with it. And while I could turn it off on those particular tabs, I would kind of like to just turn it on for particular tabs instead. But that's me. Now, this ties into what you were just saying a moment ago about watching streaming services, Darren. There is no option to change the originating location with the free VPN built into Firefox. Now, I already mentioned this a moment ago. When I checked my IP address, it showed Chicago. So it appears to pick or use the proxy closest to you. Yeah, I'll do some more testing, but that makes sense. While it did refresh my IP every time I turned it off and back on again, I couldn't say, for example, I would like to route my traffic through Miami or through Berlin.
Yeah, this is where a paid VPN service would come in handy if you were planning to go on lots of trips abroad. You could then choose the country that you want to appear to be on the internet from.
Exactly.
And that's only available with paid services. So
now, there is one other note I took on the free VPN service built into Firefox. And at first, this is going to sound bad, but as I get through it, you'll hear that it's really not that bad. In fact, it makes sense. When you use the free VPN service built into Firefox, there is some logging when you use the service. Now, that's why I said that's going to sound bad at first. Here's what Mozilla says. They say that they collect, quote, technical data needed to provide, maintain, and ensure the performance and stability of the service, as well as interaction data to understand usage of the feature and help guide improvements. In other words, if I'm going to enable it and then suddenly go through and turn it off on 20 different tabs, that's interaction data. That's not usage data. That's not the websites I'm going to. That's how I'm interacting with the service. And seeing that people are turning it on and then suddenly turning it off on a per tab basis, just to use our example from a few moments ago, Mozilla might say, aha, maybe we should add some sort of feature to make this easier for them. You know, that kind of thing. So it's interaction data, not usage data.
I suppose it depends how long they keep that for. I don't know if they actually say how long they keep it for. But
I didn't dig down to see how long they keep it for, but again, this is how you're using it or how you interact with it. Yeah, I should say that. This is how you're interacting with it, not how you're using it. In other words, they're not logging the websites you visit or the content of your communications.
Oh, good. Okay, that's fine then. Yeah, that's fine.
That's why I said it's not going to sound so bad when I'm done. But they're not logging that. But they may log whether, and they specifically say this, they may log whether a connection succeeded or failed.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Or they might log that, let's say, 2 gigabytes of data was used on a certain day. That type of thing. But not the...
Yeah, because there's a cap, they need to track that.
Right. But they never log the websites that you visit or the content of your communications. So...
Okay.
That's where it's not so bad in the end. But for people who are worried about logging, and logging via VPN services is a hot button. You know, if you're worried about logging in VPN services, that is what they log versus what they don't log. So the actual usage of it is not logged, and that's the important bit. And then the last note is that we have to remember this is in beta. So changes will be coming, and that's why they're rolling it out slowly. They're not giving it to everybody at once. They're just saying, let's give it to these 10% of our users. Let's give it to these 5% of our users. And as this feedback data comes, and by the way, some of this logging that they're doing might actually go away once the beta ends. I could see,
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah,
I could see where collecting technical data or how you interact with it would be important during the beta phase and not so important anymore once it's out of beta. So we don't know. We don't know how it's going to evolve. We don't know how the service is going to evolve. It is still in beta. So take that to mean what you will.
cool. Well, they're probably analyzing how much server load they're getting at the moment as well, to make sure they shape the traffic and don't go overboard. So yeah, they've got to make sure they're matching capacity with demand. Yeah.
Yeah, they do need to make sure that their service to which I'm connecting or you're connecting at any given time can handle the load of that traffic that might be enabling the service. Yeah, that's an excellent point.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Mozilla VPN, which is their paid service. Now, this differs quite a bit from the free service we've just been talking about. However, like with the free VPN, Mozilla VPN does create an encrypted tunnel between your device and Mozilla's secure servers. Like I mentioned earlier, the Mozilla VPN works system-wide. In other words, all the traffic, all the internet traffic that originates from your Mac will go through this VPN. And it's done so by way of an app that gets installed on your Mac or your iOS device. Once it's installed and it's turned on, it covers, as I just mentioned, it covers not only your browsing, but all the other internet access. As I said before, watching Apple TV via the Apple TV app, checking your email, listening to streaming music, Zoom calls, so on and so forth.
What's on the network in Finder, connected printers on the network, all sorts. Yeah.
You know, that's interesting. Would it do that? I don't think a VPN service like this would route your local traffic through the VPN.
I believe it does, because when, for instance, you are, say, a company employee and you're going to a hotel and you join your company VPN network, and then you can specifically see the shared printers back at your company, purely by the fact that you're connecting to their VPN tunnel. You can see their shared network printers, so it covers the printer side of things as well.
Well, I did want to talk about that very briefly because that's a whole nother type of VPN. In fact, I might even call that a true VPN. Or a classic VPN.
Okay.
But if you're using a service like Mozilla VPN, I would think it would be smart enough to say, hey, this is a local IP block, 192.168.1.53 that they're trying to connect to. That's not on the internet. I don't need to route that through. That's going to go straight to their computer that's there, because you can't use a service like Mozilla VPN to connect to your home network. That would be a classic VPN.
Exactly. Yeah. So when you say a system-wide classic VPN, that you're effectively talking about is that Mozilla's VPN service is slightly different to that, it sounds like. Normally, though, that's what you would say. For instance, your own company has a VPN service, and when you then connect to your company's VPN, you see the company's network as if it was local.
Yeah, and I consider that more of a classic VPN or VPN 1.0s.
Yeah, so we've got 3 types of VPNs. Yeah, there we are.
And now this new way of thinking of what a VPN is and how it works for you is different. It's not the same. It's just it's encrypting the traffic originating from your computer to the big bad internet, but it's not encrypting the traffic from your computer back to a home office.
Your home office, exactly. You'd need something specifically set up for that.
And we'll talk about that in just a minute. But with Mozilla VPN, the first time that you enable the app, what it does, unlike the free VPN in Firefox, it automatically selects a server located nearest to you so that you have the best performance. But one of the big differences, and this is pretty huge, one of the big differences is that when you use the paid service, Mozilla VPN, you can choose from over 500 servers in over 30 countries. Now, here's the cool thing. You can choose whether you want to use a single hop location or a multi-hop location. In other words,
Yeah.
how many jumps will the information that you are sending back and forth take before it reaches the destination? Now, in specific, the Mozilla VPN, when you enable multi-hop, your data is routed through 2 locations. No more, no less. 2 locations.
Yeah, normally that's all you need, yeah.
With single hop, it's 1 location. Of course, the more hops, the more security, but the other consideration is that those extra hops might introduce some slowdowns, or
Yes.
as we might call it, latency. So if you're adding an extra hop, that's an extra path your data needs to take. So there's some extra milliseconds of latency introduced there as that extra hop is made. So that's just something to know. But to have multi-hop capability is pretty cool.
Yeah, that is, yeah.
Like the free VPN that comes in Firefox, the paid version does require a Mozilla account. I don't know if I mentioned that, but when you use the free VPN in Firefox, you have to have a Mozilla account to use it. Now, if you're a Firefox user, you probably already do have a Mozilla account, because that allows you to sync your bookmarks and your settings and your passwords and things like that. It allows you to synchronize all that stuff securely from your multiple installations of Firefox. But if you don't have a Mozilla account, you'll need to have one for the free VPN service. Well, the paid service requires an account as well. They do specifically say that Mozilla VPN, the paid service, does not log or collect your browsing data. And this is something I like, and it's not a surprise because it is Mozilla, but unlike many of the commercial solutions, Mozilla VPN is built in open source. So that's super cool, because that means that other eyes can be on it and help identify potential security issues with it that they can then patch, which I think is very, very cool. When you're using a closed source solution, you're completely at the hands of the company developing it. As I've referred to it multiple times, this is a paid service. Mozilla VPN is not free. It does cover up to 5 devices. If you opt to pay monthly, it's $9.99 a month, or $10 a month if you want to round up. If you pay annually, it's $60 a year. So you save 50% by paying for a year up front. $60 a year is not bad for a paid VPN service. There may be some that are cheaper, there may be some that are more expensive, but hey, $10 a month, that seems kind of high. $60 a year, not so bad. So I'm going to put a link to both of those, the free VPN service that comes in Firefox and the paid VPN service, Mozilla VPN, that you can subscribe to, in the show notes for this episode. Now, what about other browsers? Apple made a pretty big deal about introducing Private Relay a little while ago in Mac OS and iOS. From my perspective, that's very similar to what we're talking about here with the free VPN service.
Yeah. It can be thought of as being very, very similar functionality to the free Mozilla VPN service. Yeah, it's not exact. It's implemented slightly differently. It's not like a VPN as such, but it's effectively very similar. So yeah, it's a good idea to have a little look at Apple's description of exactly what it is.
Apple is very careful not to call it a VPN.
Yes.
But it does do essentially the same thing from a privacy perspective.
Yes.
It changes your IP address to mask your footprint on the internet. Boom. That's why people would subscribe to a service like this.
That's it, yeah. And again, it's free. You can just turn it on. Handy. Especially if you use Safari, it only covers Safari. But yes,
that's what I was just going to say. Because just like the Mozilla free VPN built into Firefox, Private Relay only applies to Safari. It's not a system-wide service, which is really interesting that it's turned on and requires iCloud. It's turned on via iCloud and requires iCloud,
Yeah.
mostly because it requires an Apple account, just like we said Mozilla's requires a Mozilla account. But it's really interesting that you can't just turn it on or off through Safari instead. But there you go. It's enabled via iCloud, but it's called Private Relay. And if you are a Safari user and you want something very similar to the free VPN service that Mozilla just rolled out in Firefox, Private Relay is what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Oh, and I should point out too that like Firefox, you can't specify a location from which to make your traffic appear to originate from. In other words,
Exactly. That particular one is entirely automated. They don't want users poking around in there and changing settings and things.
no, they do not. No. And to my knowledge, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's unlimited data versus Firefox where there is a limit to the data per month.
Yes, there's no cap. That's right. Yeah.
Now, Opera is another browser that famously has a built-in VPN feature. They are very generous with their VPN feature. They've had this for a number of years now. Like Firefox, it applies to all tabs, private browsing, all your open tabs, new windows, whatever. But unlike Firefox, with the Opera free VPN, you can actually choose, not very granularly, but you can choose your optimal location. You can choose to originate in Europe. You can choose to originate in the Americas, or you can choose to originate in Asia. So at least they give you some flexibility.
That's quite nice. Quite nice. Yeah.
Which is nice. And unlike Firefox, it's unlimited data. There's no cap on the data through Opera's VPN. One interesting thing about the Opera VPN is it has automatic ad blocking. Opera is very aggressive with the ad blocking to the point where even with a regular browsing window, when you visit sites that are particularly ad heavy, they will complain that you need to turn off your ad blocker. And that is one reason to use Opera, because no extensions need to be installed. You just get this ad blocking out of the box. And if you turn on the VPN, everything's cut off. So that's super cool.
Nice.
No account is required. You do not have to have, what do they call it, an Opera account? I don't know what they call it. But you do not have to have an account with them. And there is no logging. So it's a great browser-based VPN feature if you're looking for that sort of thing. Brave is a little different. I was actually kind of surprised.
Brave.
Yeah, I was surprised by what I found out about Brave. They do not offer a free VPN service as part of the browser. It's only paid. But as part of that payment, you get a lot more flexibility. You can choose locations from over 300 servers in 40 regions around the world. As far as I can tell, it's unlimited data. Like the others, Brave doesn't log or otherwise keep any record of your activity while using the VPN. Unlike the others, this does not appear to be developed or maintained in-house. Instead, they've partnered with a company called Guardian. And you can look them up at guardianapp.com. But Brave VPN is powered by Guardian. And as I said, it's not free. Like Firefox, it's $9.99 per month or $100 or $99.99 a year for up to 10 devices. So $60 a year for Firefox for 5 devices, $100 a year for 10 devices with Brave. Yeah, they are very privacy focused. It's a very privacy focused browser. So
does Brave also use the same rendering engine as Firefox? Is it Gecko, or is it some?
No,
is it,
they're Chromium.
Is it Chromium? Right. Okay. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they're Chromium based. Yeah.
Everyone apart from Apple or Mozilla are Chromium, aren't they? So everyone else is. There's only the other two options. So it's good to have a separate rendering option for Firefox, which is Gecko, I believe, and Safari, which is WebKit.
WebKit, yeah.
or else the whole world would be Chromium.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, there's just the three engines these days.
Yeah, I don't blame people because they're often told when they if they have an issue with a website and they go on to the support forum for the support people for that website, they're often told to go away almost to just install Chrome and it'll work because that's all they've tested it on and they can't really be bothered to actually use correct web standards on their website, which should enable it to run on any browser available
Right.
in the world. You know, if you use standards, you get the standard results, but they tend to develop on Chrome and then only bother testing on Chrome. And when it goes wrong on something else, often their help desk will just tell users to go and install Chrome just to
Install Chrome.
rather than fix the problem, just to get rid of the person complaining about the problem.
Ah, the joys of tech support. Get them off the
Exactly,
phone
yes.
as quickly as
Get them
possible.
off the phone. Yes, just install. Go away and install Chrome,
Go away and install Chrome. Yes.
which isn't solving the actual problem.
No. Are there any browsers that you use in particular, other than the three that I mentioned there? You know, Opera, Brave, and Safari. Are there any others that you use that?
Yeah. I try to keep it pretty streamlined. I used to use Chrome, but as you say, it's mainly it was because of performance. So back in the day, when I tested the browsers for the things that I was doing, which included 3D stuff, so 3D rendering. So that was quite early back in the day. Chrome was the fastest. So I did migrate over to Chrome because of that and some other advantages. But as you say, it's got worse and worse over the years. So I migrated back to Safari, mainly also because it keeps things maintained across platforms. So when I'm using Safari on the Mac, it directly matches what my experience on the iPad, for instance. Whereas if I was using different browsers on my computer than I do on my mobile devices, then that would be confusion and not be able to potentially sync bookmarks. So I'd have to make sure I installed anything I did change to in all locations. So I use Safari on all of my devices, so that's phone, iPad, and Mac, and I use Edge at work. And I customize. I don't use Google to search as well, so I swap over the search engines away from Google. I get quite good results from DuckDuckGo, so I'm happy there. So I set everything to DuckDuckGo, apart from at work, where I use Bing, would you believe?
I do not believe that. I don't know why anybody would use Bing, Darren.
Well, when you're at work and you're searching for particular code-based Microsoft things, one of the things that Bing is particularly good at is giving you replies for code-based searches.
Oh, fair point.
So that's why I use it. That's why I use Bing at work, because it's a very good search engine when you're searching for code. So that's my excuse. But everywhere else, I use DuckDuckGo. I get very good results from DuckDuckGo. I'm very happy with them.
I do install Firefox on my iOS devices. I have Firefox as my primary browser on my iPhone. I have it as my primary browser on the iPad. And it does a wonderful job syncing everything that you talked about across platforms. You have raised a good point, though. You talked about wanting to use Safari for that consistency amongst all your devices. Lisa does have Firefox for iOS installed on her phone, and she followed up with a question that says, or asks, I don't see a turn on VPN option on my Firefox mobile app on the iPhone. Is there a trick? And the trick is that, to my knowledge, Firefox doesn't offer the service on the iPhone yet. It's just, it's not there. However, the paid service that we've been talking about, Mozilla VPN, if you opt to go that route and you install the app on iOS, that would provide iPhone-wide VPN including Firefox. So I'm not sure if there's some sort of motivation on their part to not offer it on the iPhone, the free one on the iPhone, or if it just hasn't been developed or released yet.
Sounds like it's just not. It's in the pipeline, I should imagine. Yeah.
I would imagine it is, yeah. But there you go. So that was her follow-up question on that. So general summary of browser-based VPNs versus, I don't know, what would we call it? Browser-based,
Traditional.
traditional, or VPN services. Browser-based
Yes, VPN
versus
services.
VPN services. So browser-based, some of the main features you'd want to look for is that encryption. That's what they give you. When you enable a VPN in your browser, whether it's Firefox, Opera, Private Relay, and Safari. Oh, wait, no, Private Relay and Safari doesn't provide that encrypted tunnel, does it? That's why they're careful not to call it a VPN.
That's it. It's an
Yeah.
obfuscation rather than. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
So Private Relay does not provide that type of encrypted tunnel that these other VPN services do. But Firefox, Opera, Brave, if you pay for it, they provide a way to encrypt your web traffic through the browser to make it harder for others to see what you might be doing. As you pointed out, maybe someone can see the bank you're going to, even if they don't see the traffic traveling between you and that bank. They mask your IP address. So in the case of Private Relay, this is something Private Relay does do, but in the case of the free VPNs and Firefox and Opera, they mask your IP address by assigning you a new one through a proxy. You connect to their proxy, their secure server, and then they assign you a new IP address that is then what you are showing the big bad internet as you travel around. So that's one thing that they do. And then something that we mentioned a couple times, ease of use. You turn it on, it works. It doesn't get complicated. I complicated things by saying, boy, it'd be great if I could turn it on per tab and blah, 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 blah. But from their perspective, click a button, it's on. Click the button, it's off. Super simple to use. You can't mess it up.
Yeah, that's the kind of VPN I like.
Yeah, you can't think, oh, I've got the VPN on. Oh, and then you find out it's off because they give you this option to turn it off per tab or whatever. No, it's just on. It's on or it's off. Super simple. There are some limitations, which we talked about. They don't comprehensively protect your device. They merely protect your browsing session. If you enable it through Firefox, it protects the sessions you've established to websites through Firefox. If you fire up Safari, the traffic going through Safari is not protected by the Firefox VPN.
That's right. Separate.
And vice versa. Oh, and then because they are browser-based, they might not work as well with your example, Darren, streaming services. In other words, geo-restricted content might be a problem if you're accessing it through the browser because of the fact that you might enable it, and in your case, with the free one that you use, it bounces you somewhere around the world, and then suddenly BBC iPlayer or Netflix says, when was the last time Darren was in Bangladesh? And so they block your access to it. So it could cause problems with certain content that's restricted by your geographic location.
Yeah, it depends on the streamer as well. You might want to look up the streaming services that you use to see what they allow from different access from different countries.
Yeah. Yep, exactly.
Some of them are more strict than others.
Now, what if you use a VPN service like the paid Mozilla VPN, or if you were to pay for the service that you're using? Some of the benefits of that, you can, in theory, bypass some geo restrictions because you have more granular control over where your traffic appears to originate from. In other words, you can say, instead of just turning it on and having Mozilla pick Chicago for the server that I'm routed through, I could, with a paid service, with the paid Mozilla VPN service, I could say, I would like to originate from a server in London.
Indeed. Yeah.
Oh, this was an interesting one. I was trying to see what other things I hadn't thought of, and one of the points I found in favor of using a VPN service is that some ISPs, particularly cellular-based ISPs, will sometimes throttle your traffic when you're doing
Based on
certain
location.
activities. So, for example, here in the U.S., particularly from cell phones, if you have a mobile data service through T-Mobile, I think they limit it to 480p. The home internet does not seem to do that here,
Interesting.
but they might restrict your service. Any ISP might restrict your service or throttle your internet speed based on the activity that you're performing at any given time. If you use a VPN, they don't know where you're connecting to. So they can't throttle your service based on the activity you're undertaking.
Yeah, exactly, because they can't see the activity. Yeah.
They can't see the activity, they don't know where you're going, so they can't throttle your service. So that was a really good point, and it was something I hadn't thought of, but I thought I'd throw it in there.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now, I want to bring this up because you brought it up earlier, and I kind of threw this in here at the last second. But what about running your own VPN? In other words, a classic VPN. Now, this probably should or could be an episode on its own.
It depends how deep you want to go. Absolutely, it can be a rabbit hole. This one, can't it? It depends how complex you want to dive
Well,
into.
let's make this an overview because
Just an overview. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
many routers and home network attached storage devices, or NASs, offer a VPN feature. A true VPN, or a classic VPN, if you will. In other words, how we used to think of VPNs 20 plus years ago. A classic VPN allows you to remotely establish a secure connection to your home or your office network. That's kind of the point. A virtual private network, VPN. The point of them initially was to allow remote workers to establish, or remote offices to establish secure connections back to the office
Head
or
office and
to the home
that's
office.
it. Yeah. Yeah.
And many of these routers, or many of the NASs, utilize an open source package called OpenVPN. But every manufacturer approaches things a little bit differently. So as we said a moment ago, this is going to be kind of an in a nutshell overview. But when you make a connection back to your home network, and I know you know a lot about this, so just jump in and correct me anytime, Darren. When you
I was going to say the other way around. I think you know more about this than I do, but carry on.
But when you establish a connection back to your home network, and when I say home network, that could be your office network or whatever. When you establish a connection back to a known network, you're essentially setting up your remote device, your laptop or another desktop computer or another entire office. You're setting up that remote device as a node on that network. You're setting it up as if it's connected directly to that home or office network. It will receive a local IP address assigned to it by your router or perhaps by your network attached storage device. It will assign it a local IP address through your router's DHCP server. That's the component of your router that's responsible for handing out IP addresses to your internal devices. Your remote device will get one of those local internal addresses.
Yeah. And it essentially becomes another device on your local network, even though it isn't local.
Exactly. It becomes another device on your local network. And this not only allows you to securely access files on your network, but you can also access other devices that might not otherwise be available to the open internet. Or you could connect via screen sharing to another Mac on your network. Or you could connect to your network attached storage device, or you could connect to a file share or to a printer. You mentioned printers earlier, Darren.
Indeed,
when
yes.
you're out on the road and you're connected to your home network via a VPN, a classic VPN solution, You can print to that printer sitting 5 feet away from you when you're home. That's super cool. Now, what this does not do is what the VPN services provide you. This does not create a secure private tunnel to the internet as such. It's a secure private tunnel to your home or office network.
Yes.
And all
then
traffic,
when they go back out to the internet, they behave as normally as they normally would do.
Exactly. So all the traffic from your remote device is encrypted and securely transmitted back to and from your home network. But once it's on your home network, if you then go to the internet, you're absolutely right. It is handled the way it would be handled if you were sitting there at home, unless you have a VPN service at home.
Yeah, you could have one that allows yourself traffic going in, and then you could have another VPN sitting on your home network to encrypt traffic going out. So you might have to have two.
That's right. Yeah. If you really want to get complicated and slow, that's one thing that you can do. So here's where my little mini rant comes in, because other than secure file access, one example where this might be helpful is if you would like to watch a streaming service like, let's say Netflix.
Oh, I see where you're going with this one, yes.
Netflix,
yes.
Netflix in particular likes to geo-lock your viewing to a handful of locations. When you're on a computer, not when you're on a cell phone, not when you're on a tablet, but when you're on a computer. So what can happen is, I mentioned Google freaking out earlier. Services like Netflix can majorly freak out if you might actually possibly want to watch a show from your hotel room in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
How dare you?
But you're not at home. They think you've shared your password.
So
they lock down your account until you prove that you are who you say you are, which is super annoying. Well, with a VPN, you could connect to your home network via your VPN, receive an address from your home network, and stream through that connection. However, and this is key, and it's also based on experience, this is key, a strong, very strong internet connection at home is required if you want to do something like that. If you want to have smooth...
That can stress your network a fair bit.
It can majorly stress your network. If you want to have smooth, uninterrupted viewing of something like Netflix, this is where your upload and download speeds of your home network work together to assure that you get a nice problem-free connection when using a private VPN like this for streaming. Not to mention the speeds available to you at the hotel. But it is possible. I just want to mention it is possible to do it. Just know that you need pretty good internet for it to work as well as you might. It's a shame
that they restrict people like that anyway in the first place.
Yeah.
You'd think they'd be a little bit more relaxed.
You would think,
because you are paying for the service. You're paying them.
You're paying for the service.
It's not as if you're trying to. It's not as if you're trying to steal being able to stream stuff that you're not entitled to. You are paying for it, so they shouldn't really be doing things like that in my book. I think that's a bit over the top of them to do that.
Yeah. Well, you are assumed to be a dirty, rotten, stinking password sharing thief.
A scoundrel, indeed.
Yeah. Before you're assumed to be innocent. Okay, so I said Baton Rouge, Louisiana. That's not the actual truth. In truth, I was at a hotel in Alabama. And I, shame on me, decided that I would love to watch one of our regular shows on Netflix on my Mac. Not on the tiny little iPhone screen, but, on my larger 14-inch Mac screen. How dare I? Well, here's the thing. That worked. That worked. No problem at all.
Oh,
it was when we got home and we fired up.
Of course.
We fired up the Roku box, the very same Roku box that we always use from the very same home network that we always use. Fired up that box.
You from your home location,
Yes, that's exactly what happened. A click to start Netflix, and Netflix had already helpfully changed our home location to Alabama
Yeah,
rather
they must
than
have thought you moved.
where we've always streamed from. And now we're trying to stream from where we always stream from, and we had to go through 10 minutes of hoops just to be able to watch TV again, or to watch Netflix again, I should say. Another service that geolocks is Disney's Hulu, but only if you have Hulu Live, which is their live streaming television service.
So
If
catch
you,
up is okay. Yeah,
yeah, if you just stream stuff, I guess they don't care quite as
that's
much.
it.
But,
They all have slightly different rules and
yeah.
regulations for their terms of service and so on. This is particularly annoying because companies get you to agree to the terms of service, and they make the description so long that nobody ever reads it. They just scroll to the bottom and click I accept, because else nothing happens anyway. Right. So you have to accept it. But nobody has ever read the terms of service. But the companies have this legal standing that they can say, oh, well, the user agreed to the terms of service. They had no choice to agree to it. They had to. But nobody can read it because they make the terms of service so obnoxiously long that it puts people off from bothering to try to read it. It's a little bit a way of weaseling out of their responsibilities, in a way, you could say. If they only used normal English and wrote things concisely, then people could have a normal terms of service to agree to that they could actually potentially read. But then that would be in an ideal world, and which companies are going to go down the route of actually doing some niceties with their terms of service that they should do.
Anything else that we want to mention about either the free browser-based VPN services or VPN services like Mozilla VPN before we wrap things up?
I'm not sure whether to mention this, but there's this could probably be a subject for a whole show, I think, at some point. But there is a potential related thing to VPNs to not get around as such, but to help you with age verification services. There are some trickiness there. As you know, the UK has gone particularly mad about not enforcing as such, but getting age verification services to happen across a lot of systems. Unfortunately, it was implemented in a really, really bad way. So one of the things people were, well, funny that, yes. I'm not against age verification as such, but it does imply it is difficult to tell who a minor is in order to protect them from things like things they shouldn't be doing. So, for instance, going on to gambling sites and gambling all your money away, that would not be very good. So you don't really want minors doing that. But to actually find to be able to detect the age of a minor is an exceptionally difficult thing to do without going the whole hog and getting the whole world and all the adults in the world to prove their age. So there's, from a privacy angle, people have been going on to VPNs to avoid doing some of the age verification stuff, and I can see why, because of how it was initially implemented. Because there's not to go into too much detail, but that there were a large number of independent age verification companies that websites made use of, and some of them were better than others, and some of them were a complete nightmare, and people didn't really want to verify their ages across so many different services. So now things are looking better in a way, and I know Apple wasn't entirely keen on getting involved with being the gatekeeper for age verification, but they have been, and others will as well. So Google and even developers of certain Linux distros, not all of them probably, but it's going to go across pretty much all the operating systems. But Apple have been very, very quick to implement this, especially in the UK. So one of the things that we've seen recently with our 26.4 update is as part of the update, you have to prove you're an adult in a way. But if you can skip it and use the device as normal, but or fairly as normal, but you will be treated as a child as such until you verify your age. And there has been a bit of a problem with getting those verifications through. There's some people that are legitimately adults that have trouble proving that they're an adult. So there's difficulty there. So yeah, that was a bit longer than I was going to go into it, but it was just to mention that VPNs have initially been used to get around some of the difficulties with age verification on a computer, really. But just to note that it is improving, and now Apple have started to implement things. For the majority of users, it's gone through quite happily, but there are legitimate users out there, adults, that are having trouble proving that they're an adult. So I think Apple is going to have to streamline the methods that they use to do age verification on devices. But it's not too bad once you've verified once on one device, because it applies to your Apple account. Then it also automatically then applies to every other Apple device you have. So once you've done it once, you don't have to do it again. So it's not as bad as some people are making it out to be, but it certainly needs a little bit more work. And that's one of the things that is happening in the VPN world is VPNs are being used to bypass age verification problemettes. It's difficult at the moment because it's early days of implementing age verification, and there are some teething problems, shall we say.
Ironically, teething problems normally encountered by babies, and they certainly would not pass the age verification tests. So I think you're right. This is a much longer discussion than what we can or should have right here. There's a couple issues, one of which is these third-party companies. And as you said, some of them are okay, some of them are not so okay. And when we're talking about information that could potentially be related to minors, having that,
yes, have to be very careful.
having that information leak out to the outside world is not exactly something we want. So that's one thing. Two, I purposely stopped using a service that decided to globally implement age verification for that very reason. I didn't know or trust the service that they decided to go with, so I opted not to send my information over to them to verify my age. I just stopped using the service. So we do have it, and it's a service that didn't really need to implement it. They were just being proactive.
Yeah, that's part of the problem with how it's been implemented, because there's a fine-based system. So a lot of websites that you wouldn't normally class as adult only are playing it safe and just saying, well, we have to implement something to avoid a potential fine. And they probably wouldn't have been fined anyway, but they're implementing it anyway. So it's a difficulty with how the laws have been implemented, really. So I completely blame the government for that. They've done it in a quite poor way.
As
But
they
it
do.
is improving now,
As they do. Lawmakers
as
do
they
that.
often do. Lawmakers do that, yes.
They write and implement these laws without fully considering the ramifications of what this actually means to the real world. Now, Having said all that, I'm not an expert in law. I'm not an expert in age verification. I'm certainly not an expert in how this should be done. But I do feel as if companies like Apple and the various Linux distros and whomever else is taking the initiative to do this on their own to make things easier, that is completely reinventing the wheel. At the moment, the information that we need to verify somebody's age is already there. It's in the hands of the very governments that are passing these laws. You have a driver's license. That
No.
driver's, well, okay. Let's presume for a moment you do have a driver's license. That driver's license would be issued by the government to you. That driver's license or ID, state ID or whatever. In the US, it's a little more complicated because that's not on a national level, that's on a per state level. But, bear with me. The information to verify that I'm of a certain age is contained right there in that state database. There needs to be a secure way to verify my age without exposing that PPI, that personal private information. There needs to be a way to verify it using the data that already exists. So, Apple doing this, that's great. I'm glad that they're taking a proactive step to help make this easier, but they shouldn't have to.
No, I do trust. I trust Apple more to be able to verify. Say, for an instance, you've got a betting app on the App Store. Its ability to run, it can then interrogate the OS on the device and say, is the user within this age range? They don't need to know your particular age as such. They just need to know, are you within a range to allow it to run. I think that's a much more direct and simple and private call for the app maker to make against the operating system. I trust Apple to give that data securely than I would trust the myriad of other solutions that many websites have just randomly picked across the world. So I trust Apple to handle this better than the current mess.
It still doesn't address websites, though. I mean, it addresses apps.
No, but
it doesn't address.
No, it currently
websites.
It doesn't address websites yet, but it can. A website can interrogate whether it can be shown as well. It will be able to. Can this content be viewed? Type thing. In which case, the OS can say no. This age bracket doesn't allow the viewing of this content. So I think it is good to have it within the operating systems, and I know that they weren't entirely keen to implement this, but it is better than the current multiple solutions which aren't very good at all.
They're not very good.
Yeah.
Well, having said that, like I said, it's an interesting topic. 26.4 didn't do any of that kind of prompting for me when I installed it because
not for you guys because you're in the States. It did for everyone in the UK though.
Yeah, the laws don't, or those particular laws don't apply to us, so we didn't get those kind of prompts to verify it. So that kind of thing is so slow to move through the system. There's always, here in the States, there's always states that are more proactive and active about passing those kind of laws, but then it tends to slow down as other lawmakers realize the ramifications of what they're trying to implement here. And they start to encounter it in real life. And they're like, wait a minute, this isn't really working the way that we thought it was going to work.
This wasn't such a good idea after all.
So we may be hitting a point where, again, this is important, but maybe we're getting to the point where we start to think through the actual way this should be implemented, and then, with any luck, make adjustments to those laws to help smooth out the process in the future. I'm not sure that there really is an answer, and I'm not sure that it can be.
Well, there's no perfect answer. There's three major ways of doing it, or a few more probably, but they're all a little bit bad. really you're just choosing the least worst option.
And then there are the kids who are fooling the age verification by just drawing pencil mustaches
Oh
on
yeah,
their face.
draw a mustache on yourself, and yeah, just get an eyebrow pencil and you're sorted.
I mean, good gracious. Nice secure system they've implemented there,
Well,
isn't
that's
it?
the thing, yeah, all the fancy government people don't think these things up, but a kid will come up with a way to get around things in a few minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't give kids the credit that they should.
Yeah, well done, kids.
So with all that said, do you use a browser-based or standalone VPN on your Mac? What's been your experience and what's your favorite? Be sure to leave your experiences in the comments of this week's show notes found at formaceyersonly.com. Well, Darren, I believe you said you had a quick tip for this episode.
Yeah, the tip is really to make sure just to think about what you're getting if you are interested in grabbing a VPN, especially if you're looking at a free option. You have to be very careful because there's many a free VPN that will offer services and look fine, everything's good, but of course the way they're funding their free VPN service is by gathering data from you and selling it on to precisely the people you don't want to sell it on to, for targeting advertising to you and sort of fingerprinting you in across different services and different websites and having advertising follow you around. So that's how some of them make their money. So there's an element of trust there. So you have to be able to trust the VPN service that you're using. So that's normally not so much of a problem if you're using a well-known paid VPN, because you're paying for that service. They're not stealing your data to do anything with it to fund the VPN because you're paying for it. But with a free VPN, you do need to be very careful. I would only really trust 2 or 3 major vendors of VPN service that offer free tiers, because they are well known and trusted themselves, and they also run a paid version of the service too. So I would just be very careful. If you sign up for a free VPN service, don't just pick any old free VPN service. Do a bit of research to figure out how they fund their service. Yeah, so I mean, I could recommend 1 or 2, but probably don't need to recommend particular ones. We could just say make sure that you are able to trust the free VPN service you're thinking of signing up to, and also see how they fund their service. If it's part of another paid for one and they're legitimate and very well known, and you know what they're going to do with your data, then that's fair enough. But don't just sign up for any old free VPN service thinking that it'll be good for you, because they're siphoning off your data, or potentially could be siphoning off your data and doing nefarious things with it.
That is an excellent tip. And folks who've been listening to this episode probably recognize that we mentioned multiple times that the free VPN services that we've talked about built into the browsers, as well as the paid VPN services that we mentioned, all specifically say no logging. That is a very important consideration, because when a company perhaps gets information by or gets a little kickback by selling anonymized, and I'm going to give them the credit of saying it's anonymized data, but when they sell anonymized data, not only about you as a user, but the types of sites that you visit, that may not be a service that you want to use. So yeah, definitely pay attention to how they're funded, because that may make a big difference in terms of whether it's a service you would like to use.
Absolutely.
Very good tip. And with that said, that brings us to this episode's essential app. This episode's app is a menu bar app, Darren, and that probably shouldn't surprise you, because you know I love a good menu bar app. And this particular one is from the developer Lucas Raggers, Raggers, Lucas Raggers, and it is called Mappa Mini. Mappa Mini is an awesome little app that runs, well, in your menu bar and provides you a very quick way to search for locations directly from that menu bar app. You just click the little app, you get a search box, you type in the location you're looking for, and up pops right below your menu bar a small representation of where that location can be found on the map. Okay, super cool. From there, you can tell it you want to open the location in Apple Maps, Google Maps, OpenStreetMap, Waze, or even Here We Go, all directly from your menu bar. So you have complete control over what full map opens when you click to open this map. Not only can you open in all those different services, you can also tell it how you would like to zoom into the location. In other words, do you want to go to the nearest location when you search? Do you want an overview? What map radius do you want? Do you want it to be 1 kilometer, 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers, 25 kilometers, as well as the map size, whether you want a little small map, a medium, it defaults to a medium map, a large map, or even a gigantic map. And of course, like all good menu bar apps, you can tell it to launch at login. And then on top of that, once you've found a location, you can favorite that location so that you can quickly get to it in the future. As I said, you can open that location in your favorite mapping application. You can create a route to that location. You can open it in Street View. You can copy the address as a full address, a postal code, a city, a street, or you can copy the coordinates. Now that one is super handy, especially if you're looking for latitude and longitude. Sometimes that's a little difficult to get out of Google Maps or some of the other mapping locations. You can copy the coordinates directly from Mappa Mini. And you can also share the location as a URL or as an image. And I love being able to share it as an image. I just think that's super cool. So all these little handy features are built right into Mappa Mini so that you don't have to do things like take a screenshot and open it in preview and highlight things and zoom in on it and blah, blah, blah. It's all right there. All right there in Mappa Mini. And the best part of all of this is that Mappa Mini is free. So if you would like to have a handy dandy little mini map in your menu bar, you can download Mappa Mini from lucas.io/Mappa. And by the way, while you're there, check out the other apps that Lucas has created. There's a lot of really cool ones, but Mappa Mini is the one that caught my attention, and this week's essential app. There you go.
Cool.
And with that said, that is going to do it for this episode of For Mac Guys Only. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Remember, I do love to get your letters, so if you have any comments about the show, a tip to share, a software or hardware problem with your Mac, be sure to leave your favorites in the comments of this week's show notes found at formaceyersonly.com, or drop me a line, mike@formaceyersonly.com. And do be sure to subscribe to the show's YouTube channel at youtube.com/FMEOTV and click that little notification bell so you can find out when we are going live. You can join the chat room, and you can catch all the behind-the-scenes stuff that doesn't make the final cut of the show. Hey, Darren, what's the best way for folks to get a hold of you?
The best way to get hold of me is to email me at darren@formaceyersonly.com.
Awesome. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. Thanks to Darren for joining me this episode. Stay subscribed, and we'll talk to you next time.